Hey everybody, it's Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner. And you're watching episode 202 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. Unfortunately, for the comedy of it, I think this is going to have to be the one place where I do leave in like the audible throat gulp sound of drinking water on the microphone. Gonna have to commit the cardinal podcast sin. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
I already forgot what they're called. It's been like 2 minutes. The Martyr and the Rooster and the Forever Gift.
Yep. Yes, the AIOC episodes for October and November 2020. Almost at the end of the year. Of last year. So, jumping right into it, episode 895, The Martyr and the Rooster, written by Phil Lawler. The return of our favorite character, Devin.
Different Devin. You have two now.
Yeah, remember the first time he showed up and it was like, I couldn't catch what his name is. It was something weird. I don't know. Let me check the wiki, and I look it up and it was like Devin, but it's spelled with an A. And I was like,
forgot about that.
That's not what it sounded like to me.
You claim no attachment to him, is what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying.
He is not one of your clan.
No. He was the one who was like, hey, Buck, are you and Jules fighting? I'm going to move in on your girl or whatever.
That guy.
In the Lost Song, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really catch his name at the beginning. I was like, that sounded like Devin, but I'm not sure. And then at the end, it was like, okay, yeah, that's Devin.
He was like, Devin, you're so dumb at math. You don't have a prayer to pass. And I was like, damn, it really do be me, though. Okay, so what happens in this episode?
Okay, so in this episode, oh, my sleepy brain.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name?
Wilson, or Cooper.
Cooper, thank you. Cooper is with his buddies from the football team.
Football friends.
They see his Bible and they start teasing him. And he's like, oh, that's not my Bible, that's my brother's Bible. I'm not a Christian. And then he talks to Wilson after, and he's like, I feel really bad about, like, denying that I'm a Christian. And Wilson's like, let me tell you a story about, like, persecution in jail for being a Christian and stuff. And it's about this guy. I can't remember any names today. Sorry, what?
Tuza?
Yeah.
Tuza, yeah. It's a hard TH.
So, Tuza, sorry if I mispronounce any names. Tuza was a Christian in jail, and then he was, like, acting really nice towards everyone, but they were kind of not having it because they were all going through a rough time.
As prison tends to do to one, yes.
Yeah. And guards tried to get him to, like, be a snitch on the others and work for them, and he didn't want to, and he's like, it's my responsibility to look after these guys. And he tried to just, like, make peace among everyone, which didn't really work out. And then there was, like, a prison riot.
And they all hated him because the supervisor was like, well, even if you don't snitch for me, they're still going to think that you are because I talked to you. So they're going to hate you either way.
So he started getting picked on, and then there's, like, one guy who he helped at the beginning who was like, stop picking on him. And then he was warned by, I think, a different guy that there was going to be a riot in the prison. And there was, and the guards were like, who's responsible? And Tuza takes the blame, and the guard's like, tell me who's actually responsible. I know it's not you. And Tuza said, like, well, I said that I was responsible for all these men's actions.
And the supervisor knew it was Onmar, but, like, he needed a confession.
He just wanted, like, a confession. And Tuza's like, so it's technically my fault. And And so then he gets executed because no one speaks up for him. And then the guard goes down the line of prisoners and is like, is anyone else a Christian? And everyone says no. And Wilson's like, but one of them was lying. And then Cooper's like, how would you know that? And Wilson's like, it's me. And this took place in Japan, right?
It was in Myanmar.
I don't know where that is.
It's in like southeast, south central Asia.
Okay.
It was, like he said, it was Burma then. It's Myanmar now.
So, Burmese.
Burmese. Yeah,
I don't really know where this is. I'm bad with locations and geography. I was also doing something while listening to this, so I missed some details. And then Wilson was like, I was from there, and I was like, Wilson is not Asian. I am confused. And then Wilson was like, I was there on a missions trip, and he ended up in jail or something like that.
He purposefully infiltrated the jail.
Yeah.
It was like Batman in Batman Begins.
So, I don't know if
or like
you
the beginning
listened
of
to the
Uncharted
episodes
4.
Twice. Probably not.
I went back just because there was one thing I didn't quite catch, which was why the supervisor was like putting guns to everyone's head to like ask who was a Christian. And it was basically because after Tuza died, he like basically went crazy, like with frustration over the whole thing and being upset that Tuza had to die because, you know, those were his orders and he was the one who confessed for it. And he knew it was because of his beliefs. And so that's why he went around like putting a gun to everyone else's head and asking the rest of them. And the person who lied was Cho, and Cho was actually Wilson. I don't know if he went by Cho in the prison or if he just changed the name for the story so Cooper wouldn't know till the end. That's not really clear.
Did Cho talk earlier in the
episode?
I
think he was the guy that you mentioned when you're like, there was another guy who told him the riot was going to happen.
Okay. Did that guy have an accent? Because I
think he just sounded like the other characters because it's part of like Wilson's
yeah
deceptive narration.
Yeah, I was just like, that wasn't Wilson.
Yeah, well, obviously it would have stuck out if it was supposed to be a young Gregory Jabara.
And I mean, like, with like, an act of chivalry, it's that one, right?
Act of Nobility.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Act of Nobility. You actually, like, have Wit's VA and stuff, so yeah, well, it's, like, not...
That's because
it probably
that one's all about being like, okay, but it is Wit. And this one is about...
Yeah, but that wasn't until the end where you're just like, oh, it was Wit. Because they reuse voice actors for, especially stories like...
Yeah, but the point is they wanted you to think that everyone there was from Burma.
I was tricked. Wilson was like, I was there. I was one of those people. I was like, you were clearly not one of those people. I heard all their voices.
We weren't hearing what actually happened. We were hearing Wilson's storytelling. And he deceived us, Victoria. It's called unreliable narration. Maybe you've heard of it.
This episode gave me trust issues.
Now I don't trust Wilson. I don't trust anyone from Providence.
I don't trust Wilson. I don't trust Wit. Like Emily.
Speaking of Providence, what happens next in the story?
Wilson's like, I went back to Providence, and Devin and me were probably both like, ah.
And I shut myself inside my house for 3 weeks and cried. And
then he heard a rooster. And he was just like, whoa, it's like that one bit from the Bible.
He's like, wow, nice Bible reference.
And then...
I was confused throughout the story when the rooster was going to show up or when someone was going to get nicknamed the Rooster or something, and I was waiting for it to happen. And then when he said that, and I was like, oh, because he thought of Peter. Okay, now I understand.
Yeah, and... sorry, that was funny. Then he's just like, okay, I think God's forgiven me. And then he was like, so if I did that, and then like Peter, it was Peter, right? Yeah. Peter did all that other stuff, like, I think God can forgive you too, Cooper. And then it goes to like Cooper and his friends, And Cooper gets his Bible out of his locker. And this scene played out really realistically, in my opinion. I liked this scene. Where, like, they teased him, and he was just like, yeah, whatever. And then he teased them back, and then they just dropped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that. And they're just like, oh, we're going to call you preacher boy or whatever. And he's like, heck yeah. And they're like, oh, okay.
Was Reverend. I feel like he might have been a little less enthused about preacher boy. They also mentioned Coach Meltzner.
Yeah, they did. And I was just like, ah.
I get that reference. Yeah. I know who that is.
I know who that guy is.
Connie's
It'd be really bad if I was just like, I don't know who that guy is.
It's Katrina, actually.
There's this one thing, which I'm going to tell you, which is unrelated to anything, but it's very short, and it happened the other day and was funny, and I'll forget to ever tell you if I don't tell you now. So it was dinner the other night, and we were talking about, like, the baby and stuff like that, and how long you have to be in the hospital after you have a baby. And then they were saying, like, the types of tests that you have to do on the baby, and one of them was blood work. And I was just like, but babies have barely any blood. Like, you're just gonna leach all their blood with one test. And then I think Amanda said, like, yeah, you just, like, prick them in the heel, and they get the blood from there. And I was just like, like Achilles. And Gary's like, yeah, they test to make sure the baby is an Achilles, so we don't have a repeat of the Trojan War. And then once we confirm the baby is an Achilles, we can let the baby and the mother leave the hospital.
That's why they have to prick it in the heel, because then, I mean, you'd think it would be easier to prick it somewhere else, because then you don't even have to run the test if you don't get any blood.
No, but you have to make sure the baby is an Achilles, because we don't.
Well, yeah, but if you prick it somewhere else and you don't get any blood, it must be Achilles.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was funny.
So, yeah, the football people are back. We didn't see Buck, obviously, because, you know, they wanted to be like Cooper against a bunch of, you know, football lugheads.
Yeah, because Buck would have sided with Cooper. And he also would have told those guys off, probably.
Yeah. So we have Michael Jefferson and this Devan fellow.
Who you claim no association to.
Who spells it with an A.
I mean, people do that.
Apparently. I really wasn't expecting this story to be about Wilson. It became evident enough once he started talking about, like, Cho is that person. And
you know what's really funny? Every Wilson episode, you never start off thinking it's going to be about Wilson. You're just like, okay, normal narrative. And then Wilson shows up and you're like, oh, guys, it's Wilson time. And then he just steals the spotlight.
I wonder if at this point, when he starts telling a story in a sermon or in general to people, they just assume at the end it's going to turn out that person was Wilson the whole time, no matter, like, how unrelated or fantastical the story is, and they're just waiting for the plot twist, or, like, and that person was you.
I just want them to condition us.
I was talking about the Titanic.
Yeah, exactly. I just want them to condition us. So, like, there are a bunch of Wilson stories, and at the end, he's always just like, and that person
was Albert Einstein.
Or, like, and that kid's is How I Met Your Mother, or something like that. And then we just get to one, and it was like, and that was you, right? And he was like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like that's how the Young Wit series is going to end. It was narrated by Wilson. He was like, and that's how I met your mother. I don't know who he's talking to because he doesn't have kids. But
Young Wit series, and it's going to end, and Wilson's going to be like, and that kid's is the story of my childhood. And it's going to turn out that all of the Wilson stuff was actually Wit, and all the Wit stuff was actually Wilson.
I'm going to have to re-record so much.
And we're going to get to the end of Odyssey as a radio series. It's going to turn out that Wit and Wilson were just swapped.
The ultimate unreliable narration. Oh, never saw it coming. Thank you for telling me, Victoria. This saves... I'm in all future reviews going forward, I'm just going to switch them completely in flashback content. So thank you for helping me figure that out in advance.
You're welcome. We need that line from, like, Unusual Suspects, like, the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing people that he wasn't Wilson or something like that. That's the line from it, isn't it? That's what he says, right?
Yeah.
I haven't fully seen the movie, only, like, the first 10 minutes.
It's also like C.S. Lewis said that in Mere Christianity.
Yeah. That's why it's Whit's favorite book. Oops, sorry, I mean Wilson's.
Okay.
This is such a dumb gag.
And then the video
This is such a dumb bit.
The video documentary is focused on the first
we
half.
thought everyone was Wit. It's actually everyone is Wilson.
Wilson is Jay the whole time, which makes there and back again very confusing. Video doc focused on the first half is footage from the voice of the martyrs, and then the rest of it is Bob and some other dude use a bunch of like sports metaphors to talk about perseverance during persecution. It also, so I can confirm this story in this episode isn't true. It says that in one draft of the story that Phil was going to have the prison supervisor, instead of like going crazy and like trying to kill everyone, he becomes so moved by Tuza's sacrificial death that he quits his job and he goes to run Tuza's orphanage instead. And then he decided to go the other way, which makes sense, I guess, because then it would you'd kind of lose the payoff to the whole story, which is Wilson.
You listened to this yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
You had just a very day full of stories where there's lots of camps where prisoners get lined up and shot down and stuff between this and Shutter Island, didn't you?
Yeah, that's true. I was trying to think of what you were talking about for a second. And yeah, that is true.
And that one really out of nowhere scene in Happy
Death Day. And the scene in the next episode, too. I don't know why they put that in Penny's family
episode. It wasn't necessary, but it was just kind of there.
You know, in retrospect, I think it makes a lot of sense. So
it symbolizes the death of love.
And the death of Mario's pizza. Did you laugh
when you saw my message of how game night went last night? Where me and the others played
and quit
Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time.
Yes,
and then I said we created love and ended love, and then my computer shut off. And that was they were probably like, we created love and we destroyed love.
Victoria has left the existence.
And then I called them back and they were like, where did you go? And I was like, I turned off all my stuff.
Yeah, similar to when you hung up the call during recording and it crashed and corrupted your file.
It was basically the same energy, yeah. I don't remember my file corrupting from that.
I couldn't remember if it was that one or a different one where like you didn't have any video and I only had your audio for the whole episode.
I don't think that one corrupted my file. I think it just ended the call.
It did something weird though, and that's why we talk about never doing it again.
Yeah, well, it's because it ended the thing, and then we were like mid-conversation when we did it, and then we had to like pick up everything, and it was awkward.
Okay, so anyways, episode, kind of irrelevant point, I guess, but between this and all the Leonard Meltzner stuff, I do enjoy the little point of realism when we have stories that are set in a country and it's in a past to the point that they like specifically point out, like, it was in this country and we're calling it this because that's what it was called back then, but this is what it's actually called now. I like it when we kind of have like that little, like a teaching point and a point of realism, like we did for the DRC as well, like versus Zaire, and then Burma versus Myanmar.
Yeah, I watched stuff and they're like the USSR, and then they're like Russia.
Yeah, that would be another example, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the only one I can name.
Russia and other things. I really liked how the martyrdom in this episode, it wasn't that Tuza died because he like said like, this is my faith and I refuse to deny it. It wasn't even because he was trying to protect like other Christians or even other people who liked him particularly, but because he's like, these are the people in my charge and most of them, they hate me. They want me to die and I'm still going to stand up for them. I'm going to stand up for Anmar. He's caused me a lot of trouble and I told him not to do it, but I'm going to die for him because he gave me a blanket when no one else would, when everyone hated me. I had nothing to my name, and I was cold and wet every night. He gave me a blanket when no one else would, and now I'm going to die for him because he's my friend, and I thought that was really sweet.
It's ride or die.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me with friendships. Was like, someone gave me a blanket. Devin will now die for you.
Yeah, pretty much. That's me when, like, the introvert extrovert friend adoption thing and
Yeah.
stuff. That was me freaking out when I got the card yesterday, which I would already die for Gabe, probably, like, you know what I mean, but, like,
Yeah.
also getting the card, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so nice.
And like an RPG, like, relationship building scale, it's like someone does something for me, and it's like Devin's bar is like instantly appears and is immediately maxed out. So yeah, I liked that we had this story, and it was this atypical thing about a martyr story where it isn't like, I'm dying because I'm just like saying this is my faith and I won't deny it. He's dying because he refused to not act out the practical application of his faith, which was just loving other people and being willing to sacrifice for people regardless of how they treated him. I thought that was really good. And then we had this like pivot because Cooper asked the question I was asking, which is like, but how entirely does this relate? Like, I assumed it was like, oh, he was willing to die because of this, but like, you know, you abandoned your faith because they were going to tease you. But it doesn't seem that entirely connected.
Yeah,
and
that's
Cooper
what I was
asks the
thinking
same
too.
thing, and Wilson's like, aha, but also I was there when there was.
I'm just thinking in Vines today, like, you know, the
Like usual,
like,
yeah.
hey, wait a minute, who are you, Vine? Like, when Cooper was just like, what does this have to do with
Yeah.
anything? I was like, hey, wait a minute. And when you woke me up, I was just like, hello? Like, the water.
Yeah.
No, my first thought was, you're like, sorry I took so long. I was just like, the one with the guy on the piano or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, the then Starve, yeah. Then it was like, oh, you took too long. I was waiting too long for you to go make me a sandwich or something like that. I was thinking like I was waiting long and I fell asleep, but in the same tone of voice. Because my brain is goo today.
Uh-huh.
It's all goo, Devin. I have a goo brain.
It's a holiday. You're allowed to have goo brain.
That's true. What holiday is it?
It's Family Day.
Oh, happy Family Day.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
I think that's just about all I have to say. I enjoyed the detail of like Wilson like going back to Providence because that's you know the only place that he had to live really, like when he wasn't being, you know, itinerant.
And also we know from the Blackguard books that he was still there quite a bit.
That's true. Because of when Jack was there. And yeah, he just
Jason.
like... Well, no, I mean, Jack in the past was there. Wilson was there to observe it.
Yeah. And
which
Jason
he then
was
told...
also there during...
Well, later, decades later, Jason was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And was told this by Wilson, yes.
Yeah.
So... he locks himself in his house and...
But I was really hoping this was like a made-up story, because when Wilson was like, it was me, I was like, oh, I hope that's not a real person. I hope that's not like an actual person. And like, Wilson's like, I am now you.
Yeah, I was like, wait, did Wilson... Well, I didn't think Cho was a real person, like, in real life. But I was like, did Wilson just insert himself into a real person's story of death? Which I assumed that Tuz's story was real. But then, obviously, it wasn't, because they talked about, like, other ideas Phil had to, like, write the end of the story.
Yeah, I didn't personally look it up, because I was like, I don't know where I'm going to look this up. But when you said earlier that it was, like, all written, I was so relieved.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I feel like that would be very weird for them to self-insert Wilson like that into it.
Yeah. And even if my biggest worry was that Cho was a real person, I was thinking, like, best case scenario,
well, he had like
they got permission from the person, but still, that's not...
I wasn't expecting Cho to be a potentially real person once we knew it was Wilson, if it was a real story, because he had basically no bearing on the story before, except like, here's a person whose name you heard that I didn't even remember until he got brought up at the end, who he was or what his role was in the story.
I was like, who are you?
That's all I have to say about this episode. I
honestly don't really have much to say
I'm going to give it 3.7 out of 5.
You can give it like a solid 3 out of 5?
Compared to other stories of martyrdom that you often hear that they talked about in the bonus content, and of course other ones we've heard on this show, like Telemachus. Like I said,
I think Telemachus.
I think that's the main thing I appreciate, is usually the stories and conceptual ideas of martyrdom is like, I said I'm a Christian, so they killed me. And it's basically like, the martyrdom is because you said this was your faith and you wouldn't deny it, and that's like the be-all, end-all of what happened. And this was not about that, but it was about him practically living out his faith, and not just in a way like, I'm going to protect, like, my people, the other missionaries or the people in my church, I got to protect them because they're with me. It was like, these are the people out there who hate me and are like trying to kill me, and I'm still going to serve them and help them and then lay down my life for them. And
3.5.
I like that.
Yeah. It was a good episode.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about this episode. Anything else?
Do we usually rank the OEC episodes?
Like,
I don't think we do we?
What, like at the end of the year?
Album review, yeah.
No, because there's so many, it's hard to rank 12 things in our heads.
Because I was thinking like,
well, we usually talk about our favorites and least favorites, but we don't do a
we will,
full,
but just like, ranking them like we did.
Yeah,
like, it was hard enough yesterday to rank.
It was difficult yesterday, yes. We don't usually do a bottom to top for the year because it's too many to think about at once.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
So, which is funny because, I mean, that's what we would have had to do with old albums, back before they became half-length.
Yeah, but we don't have to worry about that anymore.
Exactly. That's a thing of the past. It's years in the past at this point.
Not our problem.
For the 2 full-length albums that we got to review before they started getting split in half. One of which was all the same episode.
Yeah, Ties That Bind, right?
The first new album we reviewed was 57. Which is wild. We got in on the ground floor of Jules becoming a character, and
we did.
Like, right before Buck came back.
We were here before Jules. We predate Jules.
We talked about Jules in our 3rd episode, which was predictions for album 57.
It's weird to think about.
Yeah, back when
I remember us talking about Jules on the beach.
Assumed her name was like Jewels, which is a reasonable assumption.
Mm-hmm. But no, it just turns out Bill's
short
super
for July.
Creepy.
Yes.
He's super creepy.
Incredibly creepy. So, that is this episode. Now let's talk about the next one.
Bill Kendall Has No Rights.
So here we go now, talking about episode 896, The Forever Gift, written by Marshall Younger. What happens?
Marshall. This episode was really cute. Can I just start off by saying that? At the end, I was just like, oh.
I should say,
it was a nice episode to listen to on Valentine's Day, because we both listened to it on Valentine's Day.
It's funny, because we're listening to this, it came out in November. We happened to listen to it on Valentine's Day exactly, which I didn't think about, because I didn't even write this in my notes. I didn't think about it until
right now.
But when I was reading the WebQuest stuff, it talked about how this story is actually an adaptation of a Clubhouse magazine story about Penny and Wooten from 2016, which was written for Valentine's Day and came out in February.
Oh, perfect.
That was slightly different. Devin, so they talked about like how things...
Our lateness paid off. It
talked
really
about
did
like
this
how
time.
Things had changed, like in the original art that Gary had drawn from it. It was only Penny and her mom there, and there was this... You could see for sale signs on the outside of Mario's that they had to get rid of, because obviously in this episode they didn't know that Mario's was going out of sale, so they would have noticed the for sale signs. They had to change it from pepperoni to a cheese pizza and cheese pizza. because in the original story, Penny insisted on getting pepperoni, and in this one, she caved to Mario's desire to not wash another pan.
I realized I didn't see the art for the last episode, so I'm looking at that right now. And
I forgot to send this screenshot to you, which is from the last episode when Bob was like doing a sports metaphor and coaching people.
Oh,
and
Penny does not look happy in this picture.
It would cut to the people who were being coached, and this is what they look like.
Oh.
Anyways.
Are those suits?
Yeah. Well, they're not real people, Victoria. Are you asking if they're mannequins?
No, I don't think it's just the heads almost looked photoshopped on.
Yeah, no, because they're like moving and interacting with each other, so unless they're autons.
Why is not all, so much Odyssey character depiction cursed?
It's funny, we're actually going to get to that later, because in the video, we get a video from Gary Locke where he actually, the entire documentary for this one talks about how AIO has changed over the years in format, in art style, in logo. Because this episode's all about change and dealing with the fact
Deflated
Tom. With things changing over time.
So, yeah. Penny finds out that her old art teacher from elementary school, the one who like inspired her from high school, who inspired her to like become an artist and really like motivated her and stuff like that, is going into retirement, and Penny's pretty upset about it, so she wants to go to like the school retirement
surprisingly upset, I thought, for a long time.
She's very upset. She was like,
why would she retire? Like, how could she do this? I was like, okay. On the
wall, a picture of like a stapler that Penny drew, and I was like, don't show it to Connie, because that
it was a tape dispenser.
Oh, tape dispenser. Yeah, I knew it wasn't a staple. I couldn't remember what it was. But can you imagine like if Penny just decided to do like a line of office supply artwork?
She does this stapler thing.
Connie
but
just
it's
wakes
artistic,
up and there's just like stapler art all over the house. She's just very upset.
Staplers, but artistic. So there's a drawing of it, and then it says, "Ceci n'est pas un écrefuse." And she's like, "See, Connie, you don't have to be scared of it. It's not a stapler."
It's a picture of a stapler, and you're like, "Get out of my house, Penny."
Art jokes.
This is the real reason why Penny doesn't live with Connie anymore. The marriage to Wooten was a scam. It was just because she needed a place to stay.
And now she hangs up all the stapler art in Wooten's house. It keeps keeps Connie away. It's like hanging up like garlic to keep away a vampire.
So Penny and Wooten go to like Penny's old hometown where she grew up,
Pennsylvania,
and she's upset about like.
I guess it's not a town, is it? It's a state. Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, Pittsburgh.
Is Pittsburgh? Yeah, I guess it is. Okay.
I think it's Pittsburgh.
And no, it is like Pittsburgh. But I was like, is Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania? I guess it is. I never thought about it really before, I guess.
She's like upset about the new teacher because he's not like the old teacher. And then she like wants to go and do all these things and go to all these places, but she finds out they've all like either changed or they're not like places in Pittsburgh anymore. Mm-hmm. And she just feels like everything's different since she's a kid, and there's like no, like all her nostalgia's been crushed, basically.
What do you mean Pittsburgh is suffering an economic decline? It's the most beloved city in America.
And she's just pretty upset and stuff. And there's also this like really sweet scene between Wooten and Penny's dad where he talks about how he like made this little like contraption in their garage for Eleanor.
Turns out the most shocking twist of the episode, Frank is valid, actually.
Yeah, Frank is really sweet in this episode, which I never would have anticipated. I'm just becoming a really, really big fan of Marshall's writing very quick ever since you
decide to look at any of the episodes he's written.
Ever since I just started like looking at who writes every episode and stuff.
It's not like I've said it in every review we've ever done.
I know, but yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, he made this thing where each night at 9 p.m. it like drops a rock into this little like container, and it says like how much I love you, and it like increases more and more every day. And it's so sweet. It's so sweet.
And they watch it together every single day of the same time.
And they tell each other they love each other, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Every day.
It was so cute. And Penny was like, yeah, I used to watch it, like, drop, and then my parents, like, be happy and stuff when I was a kid. And I was just like, this is so cute. I can't handle it. My heart.
Also, they're like, hey, Penny, by the way, I figured you would have figured this out by now, but everything that you liked when you were a kid sucks, actually. So it's time to grow up and face the facts.
I mean, that is
what growing up is like.
True about a lot of things when you're a kid.
No, I know. It's just funny that they're like, honey, no, it's always been terrible. You're just a dumb kid and you didn't know. There are some things like that I've personally experienced that I can't like think of specifics at the moment. But I know it's especially happened with like certain movies and stuff like that. Movies. Where I was like, no, this is like the best movie ever. And then I watched it as an adult. Foods that are like overly sweet or something like that you like have later, and you're like, oh, this is.
Yeah.
Especially because your palate changes as you age.
That was me several years ago rewatching Secret of NIMH 2. Just kind of disappointed. And then also me watching Secret of NIMH 1, which I never really liked when I was younger, and just going, Justin's cute though. And then
Betrayal.
I never really liked it when I was a kid either.
But so, you still watched it because you liked me.
Yeah, well, I also wanted to see, like, if I liked it a lot and stuff, like, how much...
No, I mean when you were young, because you had no choice, because you were...
Oh, yeah, I didn't have a choice, because you would be like, we're watching this now, and you were bigger than me, and you could push me over very easily. You can still push me over very easily.
You were very young.
Yeah, you bullied me as a kid. So mean. I bullied you back, though, so we were kind of even.
Yeah.
In that regard. But Penny and Wooten, Wooten comforts Penny because she's just like, everything I know is just being destroyed and stuff, and nothing lasts. And then Wooten's like, well, here's one thing that lasts, and then he gives her like 2 tickets for Waterworld that I don't know
If we know there's anything that lasts in this world, it's business waters for theme parks in Midwestern America.
It's
H2O, that was fun.
So I don't know how he arranged this, but
yeah, I imagine that takes a special request. I feel like you don't normally let you book tickets 50 years in advance.
Wooten is like the town sweetheart, though. I feel like they would do it for him.
Yeah.
So the date on the tickets...
Victoria, here's the thing. I'm sure they would anyways, because for a business, there's no better extrapolation of the business model of like gift cards, where it's like, you give us money now that you're probably never going to end up using in the long run.
That's true, and if they go out of business, that means they just made
the
free money.
Exactly, yeah. It's like the ultimate ideal for business of the gift card idea, where it's like, you give us this money now, and you can get it back in 50 years that you're probably not going to use or not even be able to use.
True.
So I'm sure they were more than happy to sell pre-sale 50 years from now.
This was the sweetest part of the episode, because this happens like basically about the same time that like the Eleanor and Frank thing happens with the rock. Mm-hmm. And Penny and Wooten are with each other and they're talking and he's comforting her, and then he's like, well, here's one thing that lasts, and then he gives her like 2 tickets for Waterworld, and then he tells her to look at the date, and the date is for 50 years in the future, and she's like, why would you do this? And he says like, well, because I'm always going to be here for you and we're going to last and I believe in us. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then he said like, and in 50 years we're still going to be together and we're going to be able to go to Waterworld.
And she was like, we'll be like
and he's
old.
Like, we're going to be old and stuff. And he's like, well, then we can give them to our grandkids and stuff and watch them have a great time. And you can maybe like push my wheelchair by the side of the pool or something so we can watch.
Push my wheelchair down the slide.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, but what if Waterworld doesn't exist? He's like, we don't have to think too hard about it. And she's like, what if licorice doesn't exist in 50 years?
And he's just like, okay, stop. Which I thought was pretty funny. Penny's just going through like an existential crisis, and Wooten's just being the most sweet, attentive.
That's very much what this is an existential crisis for Penny this episode.
But this episode was really sweet. I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like not paying the most attention to this episode because I was getting frustrated over being stuck in Dark Road on the level I was on. I was also like generally paying attention, but there were a couple details I missed here and there, I think. And then basically, by the time I realized how sweet they were being, it like yanked out the floor from under me, and I was just like falling in a pile of like pillows and love, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet.
I really enjoyed seeing Penny's like enthusiasm for reminiscing about the birth of her love for art and like remembering all these little details about what inspired her in the first place. And I liked how she talked with all this enthusiasm about like how the way the teaching style of Mrs. Beecham like inspired her. And then we hear from this other teacher and he's like, well, I do things differently. I don't put up the kids' art because like, you know, I want them to just be able to express themselves without thinking they have to do it in a way that's like gonna be showed off in front of others, like that I need to make it performative for what others want to see and not what I want to express. Or that like
certain pieces, like certain artworks are better than others.
Yeah, and I was like I like that. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's
and the way
valid.
It was set up, it felt like, you know, it's going to be kind of demonized in a way. It's like, well, that's different. That's not what I like. But it was like, he makes a good point, and I understand how other like that could be inspiring to kids, and other kids could be inspired by the other way. And in the end, it wasn't like, oh, well, he's wrong. Like, it wasn't about convincing him to be like Mrs. Beecham. She was like, I think he'll be fine. It'll be different, and that's fine. You know, different people do different things, and life changes, and that's good. So I liked that.
And I thought the whole episode at the beginning was going to be like about these guys. So I'm kind of glad it wasn't.
Just everything about Mario and his shop and his deal was fun. And just his like, I don't want to make a new pizza because I don't want to have to wash another pan. She's like, it's your favorite customers. We haven't been here in 12 years. It's like, well, my favorite customers usually spend more than $0 in a dozen years. I've had 4 major surgeries and 3 kids since he last stepped into this restaurant. He was fun, and Penny just being like, we're going to save this restaurant, we're going to get everybody here, and everyone's just trying to like fake phone calls. Like, okay, Penny, like, okay,
she's
Grandma,
like, we're gonna
sure
get
thing.
all of Pennsylvania here, and like, Penny, calm down.
He's like, I'm definitely going to have to wash another pan.
And the fact that like she hadn't actually eaten any pizza during that time, which I didn't.
And it's disgusting. So then she's like, "Well, I've bought into it now. No going back." And I just like the repeating joke about. I think it was where they were earlier, or maybe it was there, but about the fish. The conversation that Frank and Wooten were having about like the freshly caught like ocean fish in Pennsylvania. That they're like, "Where did this come from again?" And they're like. This is Monongahela Atlantic Salmon, and then like another interior West Virginia river like ocean fish. And I was like, hey, I know these places and rivers because of Taz Amnesty. Or the Monongahela, as Travis says in Taz Big Ballad of Bigfoot. Griffin just keep on being like Monongahela under his breath.
2 live shows, and they were arguably the best live shows Taz has ever done. I don't really care for Amnesty, but I have listened to the Halloween special probably about a dozen times, and it hasn't been out for very long.
Ballad of Bigfoot is incredible on every level because the idea of Griffin lazily trying to skip time by playing himself then turns into the funniest thing that's ever happened on the Adventure Zone.
Griffin just doing like really dumb kung fu, and then just a gun being pulled on him.
Griffin trying to use this as a way to reinvent himself into the world's coolest 11-year-old, but then gets just like scathingly dunked on in every possible way by every other member of his family.
I don't know what he expected.
The one line where he's like, in this timeline, he got onto the basketball team one of the 3 times he tried out, and Clint's like, in this timeline, I was probably proud of you.
Oh.
So yeah, the video, it starts, because we're talking about change and accepting change over the years, it starts with like showing, like, normally there's like a title card to the video that shows the AIOC club logo, but this time it's like the original AIO logo, and then it's like changing like the different logos it's had through the years. And then they show like Art of Wit, like from the original like Flat Tom era, well, even pre-Flat era Tom Wit. Like,
whoa,
family like
before he was ever deflated and unflated.
like family portraits cover Wit to like early albums cover Wit to like 15-ish albums like deflated Tom era Wit to
OG Wit, like from deflated Tom era, looks like such a lumberjack kind of dude.
Well, I'm talking about even before that.
Yeah, I know, but I don't.
So he's not the OG. He's like second G.
2G.
Yeah. Then we get to
like
5,
MLP.
And then eventually we get to 5G Wit, who gives you coronavirus.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he goes through over time, and then we have a video of Gary Locke do screen sharing, and he's just sketching like a portrait of Wit while he talks about like kind of the stylizations of Wit and how it's changed over time. And then Bob's looking at like a cabinet that shows like, you know, here's like a cassette 6-pack for an album, and then CDs, and then most people do digital downloads and streaming nowadays, and ask your parents what cassettes are. And I was like, this one time, I'll say that's probably valid just because of the age range of people listening. This is the one time I'll allow that to be used. And then there was just the back half of this video was like this random big family and footage of them like in their house, and they're all talking separately about like, yeah, sometimes it's hard and there's ups and downs of having a big family and things change. And I'm like, am I supposed to know who these people are? They never said who they are. Did they just pick them because they're a big family, or are they like famous or something? I don't know. And
that family was the Kardashians. I didn't think that'd make you laugh that much.
I don't know what's funnier. The idea that I would watch this whole thing and not know who the Kardashians are by name, if not by picture, or the idea that they would do an interview for an Adventures in Odyssey video documentary about the struggles and joys of family. That was extremely funny to me.
Thank you.
And as they're talking about in the webquest about like appreciating teachers who left an impact on you, I thought this was pretty cool. Earlier in the year, when we had the episode Out of Her Element, the Renee and Horace episode about studying chemistry, they mentioned Eugene's chemistry textbook, and they said the authors of the textbook and the names of the authors were Bob Smithhauser's favorite science teachers in school.
Oh, that's
that
neat.
he made their names as a
that's
tribute.
Cute.
And I thought that was neat. So yeah, this was a very sweet episode. It made me have more positive feelings about Frank than I have had
ever. Same.
Yeah, it just had lots of really nice.
Yeah, had some nice sneezes too.
Yeah, some nice like mushy moments between Frank and Eleanor and between Wooten and Penny. The Mario stuff was all really funny. And I just liked, it's nice when we get to see Penny have these lessons in episodes that like take on a lot kind of broader ideas of lessons. Like, I mean, Out of the Woods is one of my favorite Penny episodes ever.
Out of the Woods is probably one of my favorite Odyssey episodes ever.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal
I've still
theme.
only heard it once, I think.
I need to go back and re-listen to it again.
Yeah, same.
But that, and then like this, where like you said, it's literally an existential crisis, where she's having crisis over the concept of change and permanence of existence, and like what that means.
Which, like, I think everyone's gone through that at least once when they get older.
Yeah,
in
and you
regards
realize
to, like, certain things, especially things from your childhood that aren't around anymore.
Exactly. It's understandable, especially when you don't live in the city where you grew up, so you don't see these things change slowly over time, like restaurants disappearing and stuff like that, teachers retiring. So...
And they don't have a KFC in Nelson anymore.
Yes, I think I heard about that.
I'm sad about that still.
So yeah, I really appreciated how they like acknowledged like, yes, this is this happened, life changes, and that's good and fine. But there are things that don't change that we can count on. And it talked about, in the web quest, they talked about like the 5 love languages and kind of like broke them down in descriptions and different ways that like kids could enact them, like with their friends and family.
I feel like we've talked about this before, but what's yours?
It depends. Well, I have a genuine mix. It depends on the person. And it also, you have different love languages that you appreciate to receive and that you are most commonly like show to others first off. And it depends on me, like on which person.
Which one do you like receiving the most in general?
Words of affirmation.
Words. I almost said something nice, but I couldn't think of it.
Thank you, Victoria. I really appreciate it.
I like your shirt.
Thank you. I'm glad you like the shirt that you bought for me.
Oh no, my headphones. Oh no. I just hit my mic so hard. Mine is quality.
So that was nice.
Time.
I didn't realize until the description at the top of that page on the web quest that it was a pastor who wrote the book about, like, wrote the love languages book.
Oh, I didn't know that. What's your least one?
I don't know.
Because on the quiz, if you do like the
I've never done the quiz.
Online,
I just I'm
did
introspective.
My what do you think my lowest one is? Because it's like quality time,
Physical
gift
touch?
giving, words of affirmation, physical touch, and I don't remember what the other one
You said
is.
them too fast. I couldn't think of what you were saying.
Gift giving, physical touch, quality time,
Acts of service.
words of affirmation. Oh, acts of service. Okay.
I'm going to guess physical touch is your lowest one.
Yes, it is. I'm like, yeah, I did the quiz and I was like, yep, that checks out. No one touched me.
See? I know you.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, it was
certain people are allowed to touch me, but people in general are not allowed to touch me.
It was a very sweet episode. And I'm glad that it was a Valentine's Day story adapted into a November AIOC episode, which we then listened to on Valentine's Day.
How
Without
perfect.
Knowing.
I really like it when they adapt club stories, because they don't do it very often, or at least I'm not always aware when they do it.
Yes.
But
the only ones I can think of
the
are...
The ones they adapt are always really good.
This one and the Underground Railroad and Leap of Faith.
Kidsborough was one, wasn't it?
It was books. Was it Clubhouse before it was the book series? Not that I know of. I feel like there's at least one Jones and Parker Detective Agency that was a short story. They've been doing them in every web quest now, like a short whodunit Jones and Parker mystery, and I just haven't been reading them at this point because I've been in too much of a hurry.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to give this episode... I can give it a 4.8 out of 5. I really liked it. I liked the characters. It had good humor, and it had a really sweet message, and I appreciated it.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. I thought it was really nice, and it's like the kind of fluffy where you can just casually listen to this episode, and it has like enough feels to just like warm your heart, but not make you cry. So it's like a good balance.
It's just a feel-good episode.
Yeah, it's a nice episode. It's like it's the comfort to all of the hurt from
the last one
album. From album 70.
I thought you meant from Martyr and the Rooster, but
no,
yeah, also all the trauma of album 70. So that is it for this review then, I believe. What are we talking about next time, Victoria? I have to check what the episode title is because I know you're not going to know it and I don't remember it. Are
we doing more AIOC?
Yeah. Teach a Man is the December episode. And then we'll be wrapping up 2020 and predicting for 2021. So, that's what we're doing.
So, wait, are we only doing that one episode by itself?
Yeah, because we just have December. We only have one episode left. Because then we'll have a review and a prediction, so it'll pad out to a full episode.
Oh, I can't even pronounce the February episode of the month.
Cough Kit or something.
Kopfkino.
Yeah, Kofkino. Anyways, okay. Thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Nevin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackard.
And I'm hungry, and I think I'm losing my voice.
And thank you for joining us on our side. Thank you. This has been the Adventures Not.
I also think I might have broken my headphones.
Uh-oh. This is the Oddcast. Goodbye.